It is Wednesday, the 13th of November 2019. In this episode of the 24 Hours of Bitcoin, we'll go through our 5 indicator sets on all the different time frames, and at the end of the video, we'll take a look at a price chart that all of the bulls are afraid to look at. Let's jump in and start off with our weekly view of the Relative Strength Index. As you know from watching previous episodes, I've been watching for this trend line to fill itself out over the current time frame. When I zoom into the daily view, I'm paying attention closely now to what's going on with this edge and what's going on with this trend line, because this is a very bullish trend line here that we have. After this price broke down, we've got 3 higher lows, even though we had this pullback and retracement. Let's continue to zoom in to see what the RSI is telling us on the closer time frames, because it's giving us very specific levels to watch for price action. So if price action is moving above or below these levels, the RSI is going to confirm for us. As we get into the closer view, I am more bullish because of the divergence that we're seeing setting up across this sideways action. Let's continue on to the rest of our indicators and see if they agree. We go into the on-balance volume as our next one, and for this indicator, we're watching for the positive volume to be coming in as we zoom in. As we zoom into the daily, we can see that we have the zipper going on now. Sometimes the zipper precedes big moves. That is, that we have the, let's change here so that I can bring this up and zoom in on it. We've got from red to green to red to green to red to green across the midline, and I call this the zipper. And it usually precedes a big move. Many times it's been to the downside, so we'll have to see what goes next. Let's zoom in closer on that zipper and see what's going on in the 12-hour time frame. A little bit of positive volume. Not very much though. If I go back to that 12-hour view, and I just appreciate that we've gone from high volume to less volume to selling to very little volume, which generally is bearish to have that kind of divergence going from positive to negative. It could precede the dump. So let's zoom in closer and see what's going on. Here again, we've got pump, a little bit of volume, and then selling across this area, all the way across there. Let's see what the closer time frames tell us. This selling is heavy, lighter, and lighter. Are the bears running out of steam? But the bulls are not really stepping up with strong volume yet. So nothing's going to happen until we get this volume picking up here. It's been the same story for a few days now. We'll see if this volume actually picks up into a swell and into a surge. Let's continue to see if our other indicators are giving us some turnaround action. Here's the MACD indicator, and we've been watching for these histograms to shorten and shorten and shorten. If we're going bullish, this must happen on the weekly time frame. It's pretty quick to see in the daily time frame that we have a cross to the negative, just as we had before, but we're watching this parallel channel to see what goes on with that. If this continues on into the negative stance, then we can expect this to dump. If this histogram itself starts to shorten up in the next couple days, this will be our bullish indicator. Let's go into the 12-hour time frame and see what's going on here. Here we do have that bullish setup of the histograms getting shorter and shorter. It hasn't crossed positive yet, and we need it to if we are breaking out. Let's go and see what this is doing for the prices at the same time. So here we are, the 12-hour crossed at the peak here, and it is coming to another cross. Should it cross to the positive, it would be very bullish because we would have 3 higher crosses on the 12-hour time frame. That would be a very bullish divergence across this bottom here as we're setting up. And now I want to see, zooming in on this to see what's going on with the 4-hour and shorter time frames. The 4-hour has crossed positive, it's hovering, it has crossed a little bit positive, and that's pretty good. If we zoom out, we can see that the 4-hour is holding at higher crosses all the way along here. Should it cross to the positive, this would be a very strong supporter, especially if it pulls the 12-hour MACD to the positive as well. That would be huge. The 15-minute is also confirming bullish. The 5-minute is confirming bullish. And we're getting a very interesting wave pattern set up here that seems to me that something is building up. There is some momentum going along with this. I expect that this is going to be surging quickly. Let's zoom into our next indicator so that we can capture all the data here. I like to look at this and take out the prices so that we can see that the red line, the baseline, is higher and going higher. It's splitting further and further away from the conversion line. Now, when I put the price back in here and we zoom in on this, let's go and see what the daily is doing. This was really important over the last few days. We've been really paying attention to the difference between this parallel channel and this parallel channel, in that they are in different stages of the Ichimoku cloud. And if I take away the price again, we can see that right at this level, that prices have crossed negative. Here, they have not crossed negative, and we are in a very similar parallel channel, but the Ichimoku cloud is considerably different here. Let's put the price back on and zoom in on this. From the daily into the 12-hour time frame, drag this back. We can see that we do have a cross to the negative on the 12-hour time frame. This has to pick itself up. We've got to see a cross to the positive on the 4-hour or the 1-hour time frame. Really, if we're getting this turnaround, those have to be. Let's zoom into the 4-hour time frame, and we can see that the conversion line is still below the baseline. And so a turnaround it may come fast, but that has to happen, that the blue line has to cross above the red. Let's go into the 1-hour time frame and see that the blue line has crossed above the red on this time frame. We are just starting a little positive twist here. So we have the blue line crossing above the red. We have the green trailing indicator moving along, and it is crossing through everything right there. So when we see that set up, we have a few different things that are positive. This green crossing through everything, the blue crossing above the red, the cloud twisting to the positive. What we really need now, of course, is the price to get up above this cloud when I put the price back into the chart. And so that will all confirm. Let's go see now the Bollinger Bands, and then we'll finish up with that chart that none of the bulls like to look at. When I'm looking at the weekly Bollinger Band, the first thing that jumps out to me is that we are still below the midline of the band in today's prices. And when we were in the actual bull run, we were above that midline of the band. So we've got some work to do. If we're really going to turn around into a bull market, isn't doing it yet. If we move into the daily time frame, the band is tightening down, indicating that there's a bigger move on the way. I'm anticipating it's going to be straight up, and I could be completely wrong, but that's what I'm anticipating. Let's zoom in now to the closer time frames to see what's going on with this, because this is where I'm studying the Bollinger Bands mostly, is on the 12-hour and the 4-hour, and comparing it to our 1, 2, 3s, the RSI divergence, the MACD divergence. And right now I'm seeing that when I compare this band, compared to this band, when we had that similar parallel channel, the bands are quite different. This one is narrow and then it flares. This one is very narrow neck and it's flared wide earlier. To me, it's a very different setup. And I want to clear this off and draw these in again, just so that we have these as a point of reference as I zoom in, so that we keep reference of how wide these bells are here. Let's zoom in from the 12-hour to the 4-hour time frame and step back so that we can compare what happened with this parallel channel and then the dump compared to the other parallel channel that we're in right now. We can see that the band did quite a different pullback and tightening up action here on the 4-hour time frame. As I zoom into the 1-hour time frame and give us some perspective here, we can see how this sort of poured out like water out of a bottle, just shoom, where here it's come down and it seems to have held itself a little better. It doesn't seem to have that same dropping momentum. And the shape of the band is quite different. When we overlay what the 12-hour band looks like compared to the band here, this feels very different. So I'm expecting that this is going to be quite a different turnaround from this spot, and it could be a bowl shape. It could be a cup with handle before we go up. All of these are options. And so in summary, in our technical analysis in 10 minutes, it's looking very bullish to me right off this moment. The RSI is confirming bullish. The volume isn't really standing out yet. We need to have this pop up. I like what I've been seeing in the the MACD indicator. I like the 12-hour momentum change. I like where the 4-hour is. The 1-hour is coming along. I'm pretty curious to see what's happening here because of what's going on in the 5-minute time frame. And if we go into the Ichimoku cloud, it's the most lagging indicator here. We have to go right into the 1 hour time frame, and it's still not standing out really strong. Bollinger Bands is giving us a very different flavor to what we had in the last drop. And so I am anticipating it may take a little bit longer here before we're going up, but I am anticipating that we are going to be going up from here. And now I want to close with a commentary on this chart. One of the guys in our Discord chat shared this. He's very bearish. This is a scary chart. If you look at this and you consider that this could be the larger 1, 2, 3 top formation, and if we are inside this kind of psychology of a market cycle, then it would stand to reason that this chart is sort of predicting that Bitcoin prices would come back down to the $500 level. But it's really important to know that the psychology of a market cycle happens in every single market cycle, not just in the overall macro change of the uptake of a new technology, but inside every single market cycle. That is, every time we came up and then dumped, every time we pumped and then dumped, this entire psychology of the market cycle is playing itself out here. So we had that cycle here, we had the cycle here, we had the cycle big here and all the way down. We've had the cycle here, we're having a mini cycle here. It's always occurring. Now, will it happen for the overall movement of Bitcoin? You could say it may, for certain. We don't know the future. But it would be like predicting that microwave ovens would have this kind of market cycle where they would just stop being used after a while, and that's not the case. This is for the mini market cycles and not for the use case of the whole platform for Bitcoin as a type of money. And so it's important to have a larger outlook than just considering that this is the entire market cycle. Instead, consider the fact that Bitcoin as a payment type is nothing compared to the whole world right now. Cryptocurrencies still haven't picked up because governments haven't given the big industries the green light properly yet. So we see cash is 31% of the world's usage, debit cards, credit cards, electronic payments, cash. So if we were to do a chart of debit card usage since debit cards were first invented, we would see that that chart pattern probably did not have a cycle like this where it came up and then it ran all the way back down. People just stopped using debit cards. That's not the case. Instead, we can see that technology goes into an uptake and then it flatlines, it plateaus. We can see that radio really went through a growth curve as radio was introduced, but then soon it became saturated and it's at a flat line. Some of the only things that ever came back down were landlines because they were replaced with a better technology, and that may happen with Bitcoin, sort of like Friendster and MySpace, and I believe that to be the case because Bitcoin doesn't have fast enough transactions. Simple, just that one thing. There'll be something else that comes and replaces Bitcoin. So the pace of technology change really is faster these days than it used to be because the internet is in place. So we have these stages of the technology uptake where we have a whole bunch of the innovators and us early adopters, but as the rest of the world starts to pick up on it, then the price of Bitcoin is going to start to stabilize, and that's going to be a long ways in the future. We need a lot more market cap to stabilize it. And that's not going to happen until we see the number of unique users going way up, and it may not be Bitcoin that does it. Bitcoin may have part of it, but you can see here that only through the news pump of 2017 did we get a lot of new Bitcoin blockchain wallets being utilized. And that still hasn't picked up. We can measure this. We can watch this. And we can also look at the number of blockchain account holders for a general idea of how the space is still accelerating and growing very quickly. We're still at the very early stages of it. And finally, the last thing to pay attention to that may take your eyes off of this as a big move up that could come all the way back down, but a big move up that if we look at this in the logarithmic channel, this is an ascending wedge pattern that is going to be going to $100,000 or more. And we can see that by looking at this chart, by looking at all of the world's money markets in one visualization. And I want to point out that this chart is old. It's from October of 2017, actually. And so cryptocurrencies are about double the size that they were at that time in 2017. But this is still a great visualization to realize that we are nowhere near where Bitcoin is going to end up. Let's take a quick look at this. let's say we'll just double this and we'll say that Bitcoin is maybe 4 of these squares, complete big 4 squares for all of the cryptocurrencies. You could give it 5 squares, whatever. So we are growing to almost the size of half the size of Apple, a third the size of Apple. I mean, a little bit, you can see the size here. The 50 richest people still blow away all of the cryptocurrencies in the world. California's GDP, gold. If Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies are 4 or 5 of these squares, gold kicks butt like nothing. And then we look at the stock markets, absolutely dwarfs Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We go into the global money supply. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies don't represent anything. We haven't had even a section of this global money supply move over into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies yet. We all are, look at the global debt of the developed markets and the global debt of the emerging markets. And we can compare this to the global real estate. We can go on and on to the derivatives market now. This is the futures market. Let's see the low end of the estimate of the derivatives market. Let's scroll down here. The black is the low end of the estimate. And then we have the high end of the estimate. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, maybe we'll give it 5 of these squares total, maybe. So we don't even have 1 row of the low end of the estimate of the derivatives market in Bitcoin yet. We haven't seen anything yet. And so don't let this kind of chart hold you back from building your cryptocurrency holdings. Use Bitcoin to trade altcoins when it's appropriate and keep your Bitcoin. Short Bitcoin at very low leverage if prices are coming down, but keep your Bitcoin. Let's jump back into the charts and see what Bitcoin's doing right at the end of this presentation. And we'll see if this volume is enough to kick us up and juice us up to the next level. Come and join us over on our Discord chat. We'll talk about Bitcoin prices throughout the day. We'll continue to monitor these chart patterns with our relative strength index, our MACD indicator, the on-balance volume, the Ichimoku cloud, and the Bollinger Bands. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you on the next episode of the 24 Hours of Bitcoin.